Hi YouTube! Welcome to day 6 of my birthday countdown vlog, talking about my 34th year, as I'm now 34 days up until my 40th birthday. So, when I was 34, this would be 2006, the big thing that year was Dave and the beginning of our relationship. So, let's see, very early in that year, Dave and I attended a party, Burns Night party. A friend of ours was hosting an annual Burns Night, and of those of you who don't know what that is, Robert Burns, he is the poet who is responsible or is well known for Auld Lang Syne. That's obviously the New Year's song, but he was a very prolific poet. He wrote many, many poems, most, actually all of them in his native Scottish English. And it is a tradition for some people who either are Scotch or are aficionados of Scotch drinking, if you will. And for those folks, they love to have a good excuse to get together and drink some good Scotch. And Burns Night is a wonderful reason to get together and drink Scotch, especially in the middle of January when it's really cold out. And so our friends and I always join in, even though I'm not Scottish in the least, but we would get together at their house and they would have a wide variety of Scotches, and they were always encouraging people to bring a bottle, although I really didn't know anything about it, so I usually avoided it because I didn't want to bring a bottle of crap. I didn't know what was good or what wasn't. But it gave me a chance to learn how to figure out what Scotches I enjoy and which ones I don't. And I can go into more detail on that in another video. And that night, Dave attended the party as well. We were not dating yet at this point. We had met a couple times before at previous parties in the previous year, and I'll talk about that tomorrow. But this particular night, I kind of had a little bit of a crush on him at this point after seeing him at several parties. And I really thought he was cute and intelligent, extremely intelligent. And I always thought, I always felt that he was a very open and honest type of person. And at this point, I was kind of curious as to why he hadn't tried to hit on me or ask me out or do anything of that nature. And so I decided, after he'd been plied with enough Scotch, to kind of needle him a little bit. I kind of figured he wasn't interested in me, and that's fine, but we were kind of developing a friendship, and so I felt comfortable enough kind of teasing him. And he started talking about his sort of philosophy on dating. He had this little kind of a rating system, and he rated himself rather mediocre, but he was sort of a Barney Stinson in a way of his philosophy towards women. He only would date women he thought were hotter than he was. However, you know, that made me laugh. It was funny. Because I think most guys, if not all guys, are like that. At least in their minds, they like to think that they only date girls hotter than they are. And so I kind of needled him and I needled him and I needled him all night in terms of, okay, where do I fall on your rating scale? And I knew that if he rated me kind of low or below his personal rating, that he was being honest with me. And sure enough, he ultimately told me that he rated me lower than he rated himself. And I was like, wow, okay, you are refreshingly honest. And I really appreciated that. That just kind of increased my attraction to him. And ultimately, we saw each other again at my one friend's 40th birthday party. And that was, it was a really good party, and Dave is a really good storyteller. He's really good at weaving an interesting story, even more so than I am, and I don't think I'm very good at it, but I try. I'm learning to try and be more interesting with the way I tell stories. And he had kind of had a whole audience in rapt attention that evening with various adventures that he had experienced in his life and was talking about them. And occasionally I would interject and tease him about various things. And eventually, near the end of the evening, he finally sat down next to me and said, "Okay, fine, do you want to go out and get a drink?" And I was like, "Yes, please." So we actually just left the party together. I had actually come with a couple of friends of mine, and I apologized. They drove me, so it wasn't like I had driven them or anything. But I said, I'm going to go and have a drink with Dave. And we have ended up going to a bar, but I only had coffee because I'd had several drinks already at the party, and I didn't really need any more alcohol in my system. So I just had a cup of decaf coffee. And we sat and we talked for a good hour. And we'd always had a real good rapport together. We'd had good conversations together as well. And he actually came out and was extremely honest with me and said, "Hey, I might get bored in 3 or 4 months. And so I don't see this as a long-term thing." And I found it refreshing that he was honest with me, but at the same time I was very trepidatious because I didn't want to get hurt again. But at the end of the day, I finally said, screw it, I really like him, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to enjoy whatever time I can have with him. And when it's over, it's over. But at least I was like, okay, at least I know ahead of time. I'm not going to sit here wondering, is he, isn't he, whatnot. So the next 3 or 4 months were very interesting. We went on our first real official date with a dinner and a movie. We saw Superman Returns that evening, and that was kind of fun. That was cool. Then he had a business trip to the East Coast that he had to do for his company. And right in the middle of that business trip, he got some very, very bad news about his mom. His mom had a stroke. And this is the second stroke that she'd had. She'd had one about 9 months previous, and they didn't know she'd recover. And she actually was making remarkable progress. She was back to driving a car again and just everything. And so he was so proud of how far she had come from that first stroke. And then, bam, she gets another one, and this time she didn't make it. And it was a very difficult time for him. I offered to come up and see him. His mom had been living in Billings, Montana, and I was like, if you need me, I'll come up there. I'll give you a shoulder to cry on, whatnot. But we'd only been dating for a couple of weeks at that point, and it was too early. And I didn't pressure him. I said, look, if you need me, I'll come. If you don't, that's okay. The day after he came back home finally was the day after his birthday. And I had originally planned a big, romantic dinner for his birthday, but obviously, in the circumstances, that wasn't going to happen. But a good friend of his and I decided when he came back that we needed to take him out. So we took him out, we went to Boulder, we took him out to the Pearl Street Mall, and treated him. First we went to a chocolate and wine shop, and we had some wine and we had some chocolate. There was an art fest going on at the time, and so we kind of wandered around the art fest, and he found a really cool photo that he really liked that he purchased. And then we treated him out to dinner, and we just had a really good day. We tried to make his return back home as pleasant and as good a memory as possible, considering what an awful thing he had just gone through. And I think part of that also helped cement our bond a little bit more. Under the circumstances, I tried to be as understanding as possible and gave him as much space as he needed, and let him come to me with what he needed to have some comforting and have some company. And we were about 4 months into the relationship at this point when he just out of the blue said, "Hey, you want to come with me to Montana and meet my family?" And at that point I knew that he was feeling a little bit more serious about us than he originally had predicted he would. He said, yeah, 3-4 months and I'll get bored, and at this point he obviously wasn't bored and he was enjoying my company, and I took some solace in the fact that, okay, well maybe I'll still have a boyfriend in the new year. And if you've been watching my videos, as you know now, we have been going out for 5 years. Almost 5.5 at this point, and it's still going strong. So his original prediction was way off the mark, but it was definitely an interesting adventure, getting into relationships, starting the relationship, and then just some of the awful things that happened that year, and trying to comfort him and get him through it, and ultimately ending up going out to Montana and meeting his family and just having a really wonderful end of the year. So that's all I wanted to talk about today, and honey, if you're watching this, I love you. Alright, till tomorrow. Bye!